So we're close enough to time, so we're going to get started. So welcome, everybody, to our Lunch and Learn. I'm Katie Posch, and I'm just going to introduce this Lunch and Learn about when bigger isn't better, what it takes to be a successful small research team. And no one on our panel has any disclosures related. So to start us off, let's think about what it takes to be a successful team. And since this is a lunch session, I thought that this was appropriate. According to Jeff Bezos of Amazon, a successful team is a team that can be fed by 2 pizzas. And so the idea behind that is that smaller teams tend to have better ideas, more collaboration, and are really more effective and engaged in their work. However, optimal team size is really subjective and can depend on several factors. In our CF research world, factors such as patient population and study load can dictate what is the best size for your team. So last year at NACFC at the RC update session, Patty and Kelsey presented data from the 2022 RC survey. Among the questions asked were ones related to your team size. And nearly half of the over 200 RCs that responded to this survey are on 1 or 2 person teams, whether that's by design or by circumstance. So this fact really spurred some discussion on the planning committee about how the majority of the research teams that come to these meetings are small teams, yet so much of the focus regarding CF research tends to be on the larger team. So with that in mind, our objectives for today are really going to be how can we best translate tips and tricks from a successful team to a team of any size. We're going to examine the multifaceted role of the RC and identify strategies to help support a small research team. So to help us accomplish these objectives, we have an excellent panel of small center RCs from a mix of pediatric and adult teams. They're going to share their insights, their successes, and how they've overcome challenges. And I'm going to turn over the moderating duties to my co-chair, Sam Galvin, and allow the RCs to introduce themselves.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for staying behind and not leaving us. We had a long, great conference so far, but we're really happy that you're here with us today. So Erin, Lauren, Sarah, and Julie, thank you so much for being part of our panel. We really appreciate your time. Can you just start maybe with Lauren and tell us a little bit about yourselves, introduce yourselves to everyone?
My name's Lauren. I work at Akron Children's Hospital in Ohio. We have a 2-person research team, and I am part-time, so I work 16 hours a week, and we also have a full-time 40-hour coordinator. Yeah, I think that's it.
Julie.
Hi, I'm Julie. I am one of the research coordinators at the University of Vermont Medical Center. We work both with the adult and peds team. There are 2 research coordinators on our team and 4 PIs between the 2 centers. And I've been doing it for about 7 years now.
Hi, I'm Erin Huberts. I am the solo adult CF coordinator in Milwaukee, Wisconsin at the Medical College of Wisconsin. And I've been in this role for almost 9 years. And we have a patient population of about 150 patients.
My name is Sarah. I work at the University of Pennsylvania. I sort of work on a different side of things. I'm a project manager, so I don't see a lot of patients anymore. But we do have a team of 3 full-time research coordinators now. So while it doesn't seem small, it still is small. And when we actually started planning this talk, we had 2 full-time research coordinators. I've been working in research for about 10 years, and I've been working with our specific group for about 6 years now.
That actually leads to the first question that we had. How did you get started as an RC or a clinical research nurse? And Sarah, since you started to tell us a little bit about it, how did you get into research?
I basically failed getting into PhD programs. And so I always knew that I wanted to do research, and I struggled with the idea of a PhD because of all of the time and effort that was going to be required. I didn't want to be a clinical psychologist. I really wanted to focus on research. So after that, I decided to get a job as a research assistant. I was working at Geisinger Medical Center for about 3 years until I moved to Philly. Worked at CHOP for about a year and a half, and then have been at Penn ever since. So again, I sort of fell into it, but really quickly loved clinical trials. And once I got into the CF side of things, I think that's really where I was like, this is my niche. This is my niche. I really love this. This is what I want to do.
Thanks. We're all hoping that happens to anyone who comes into research in CF, that they sort of get sucked into it, becomes their home.
My entry into research was a little bit backwards. I actually applied at the medical college for a different job altogether, not related to research. And the HR recruiter called me in and said, we feel that you're very overqualified for the job you applied for. So how about you take a look at this job opening? And I looked at it, and the first thing is the title of the job, and it's clinical research coordinator. And I said, I know nothing about research. And she goes, that's okay. They'll train you on the job. So that's basically how this all got started. And they hired me, and that's exactly what they basically did. Was they threw me into a TDN spring meeting. I learned how to do sweat testing before I even understood what it was for. And that's how it got started.
For me, in undergrad, I was pre-med, major in biochemistry. I was planning to go to med school, but was kind of wanted some time before I took MCAT. So I took a gap year, turned into 10 years as a lab tech in neurology doing bench science. And then at kind of around the 10-year mark, one of my colleagues transitioned over to being a clinical research coordinator, and I thought, well, that's a really great idea. And so I started as the full-time research coordinator in the CF program. My mentor was going part-time, and she had been doing it for a long time, so I learned a lot from her.
I went the nursing route, and I've been a nurse for 13 years. And since 2016, I've been in the pediatric ICU, which is a pretty tough population to work with. You see a lot of loss. So I did travel nursing in 2019 to 2021. And then when I moved home, I saw a job for research coordinator. I knew nothing about CF. I didn't know what Trikafta was. We honestly didn't see a whole lot of patients in the ICU setting, which is great. But it was kind of a throw something at a dartboard that wasn't going to be seeing death every day, which is pretty cool. Being a part of the post-Trikafta and seeing what a big difference it's made. Like, I love ICU. I still work there, but I can't step away from this because it's just so powerful. So
It's great. You can actually, I think everyone in CF research appreciates that we actually get so much feedback from what we're doing in the field. I want to move next to how you use the tools in CFCRNet, if you do, or if you use databases, REDCap, and how you decide on studies. I know those are two different questions, but does anyone want to start us off on that question?
I can speak to the fact that I don't use CFCRNet as much as I should. I've only been in my position for 2 years, so I have a lot to learn still. We do use the CF Smart reports when we're looking for potentially eligible research candidates. But I'm really excited about the new interface for CFCRNet. If you guys were there yesterday morning, I think it's going to be a really good new layout for us. So.
Yeah. I would say we also use the CF Smart reports. I also still really like Port CF reports creator because I can kind of get even more detailed into who might be eligible for studies and get more of the eligibility criteria that way. And our team a couple years maybe before I started, did equip CR coaching program, which I highly recommend. And out of that, our team meetings, we created this agenda for team meetings that has really helped our communication, and we still use it today.
I would have to agree with Julie. We use CF Smart Reports and Port CF Report Maker quite often to help determine who in our patient population's eligible, possibly interested, that kind of thing. But we use REDCap a lot for our IITs that we do in our division. And I also have not used CFCRNet as much as I would like to, but we have a lot of new initiatives going on in our division. So I think some of the information there and the tools there would help our whole division, actually, not just the CF side of it. But the decision on studies has actually evolved quite a bit over the last 9 years that I've been working there. It used to be a say yes to everything. Just, as soon as you get a feasibility questionnaire, say yes, because we were a small site. We weren't getting picked for a lot of studies at first. But once we proved that we could have very robust enrollment, I believe, in our studies, then we got picked more often. So now we've become a little bit more selective, very much depending on the interest of our patient population and the type of study that we're looking at, and whether or not we have the workload capacity to complete the study as well.
I just want to put a plug in for CFCRNet and tell you that it is worth it to just take a day and go through every single thing, because you will find things in there that you've thought you didn't need, and they're already there, made for you. So please, if you have any takeaways from this session, go into CFCRNet. Everyone has shared with you like the way things work in their centers and the tools that TDN has developed for us. It's really worth it to go in there and spend a good amount of time searching everything out. I come from a very small center. We have about 150 patients, only peds, and I was for a while the only person on the research team besides my PI. So even though being busy, I went in there and took out as much as really would help me stay organized. So please go into CFCRNet.
Oh, hi. I don't know if it's okay for me to ask a question right
Sure.
now. Okay. Hi, my name is Andrea. I'm from Houston, Texas, the Texas Children's Hospital. We deal with peds and adults. This is my first week on the job, so I was in the office 2 days, and then I came here, so I'm pretty new. About what you were saying for feasibility questionnaires, do you include your patients as part of the feasibility questionnaire? Do you talk to them about maybe being interested in studies then before you actually take the study? Because one thing is having eligible patients, and another thing is having patients that are eligible that want to partake in those studies. So is that something that you do?
Right. Well, first we do look at the eligibility criteria and determine who our group is that we might be looking at. But over the 9 years, there is only at our center 150 adults about, and I've actually had the experience to meet and talk to almost every single one of them. And I could almost give you the whole list of patients right off the top of my head. So I'm very fortunate in that I've gotten to know our patient population very well and what hurdles or roadblocks might exist for some of them to participate in certain studies versus others. So that's kind of how we go about thinking that there is a select group of patients from the ones that might be eligible who could participate.
So do you have your own specific kind of registry for studies of who you think would be interested, like separate registry, or is it just at the top of your
It's
head?
just conversation, basically. Yeah.
I can just add to that what we do is print out our registry list and then add in anyone who's not in the registry. And I keep a clinic flow sheet so that we go in and make sure that each patient in our population is seen We use CFCRNet and all of the tools that TDN has about education for research, and that gives us an opportunity to go over what research is, if they're interested, ask them if they have any questions, I usually give them a card to say, call me with any questions. So I think meeting your patients and actually having that discussion about research is really important before you even look to feasibility, because you don't want to be showing up to them saying, do you want to be in this study, without even having met them or have any education about what research is, clinical research.
And I would add too, my full-time research coordinator, she's been at our center for 21 years. So she's a great resource. She knows all of our adult patients as they were kids. But just to go in, just random clinic visits, ask your nurses if you can go in and talk to the patients, because it's a totally new patient set for me, and I do our registry too. So they're just names, and names don't mean much. Faces mean a lot more. So it really brings humanity to the patient population that you're dealing with.
Let's move on to the next thought about being, I think we can all agree that being organized as an RC is one of the vital components. So can anyone talk about how they organize and structure their day and make sure that you're not getting carried away with your emails and not getting to other things?
I'll pass on that one, since
I guess I'll start. The beginning of my day is I am actually the first physical being in the office in the morning. I'm much more a morning person than a night person. So I even make the coffee for the office. So first thing is a big mug of coffee while I'm going over my emails, trying to find out if anything overnight came in and it's urgent and I need to take care of it or address it right away. But otherwise, I have a pretty planned schedule for whether or not I'm seeing a patient for a visit or I need to be in clinic to talk to either the providers or the patients, things of that nature. And I try not to live by my inbox. I used to do it all the time. So I now just check it in the morning. I come back to it at around lunchtime, and then I'll check it again towards the end of the day, unless I'm really expecting messages from a lot of people, like a sponsor on a study startup, that kind of thing.
On the other hand, I probably do live by my inbox still. And I'm really strict about making sure I'm going through it, because it gets overwhelming to me to see like 121 unread emails. But I use the read function so that it keeps me up to date on I'm aware of this, but I need to still address this task. So I use it in that way. I also do keep a to-do list with kind of just for each study. What do I need to get done this week? What do I need to get done this day? And I can add to it as things kind of, the day kind of can sometimes, new things come up during the day, and I can add to it so that I don't forget those things that kind of come when I'm already busy doing something else. And then, let's see.
If you don't mind, I'm going to pop in, because once I got another person, we started doing a shared to-do list, because when I was by myself, I had a to-do list, but then making sure that we were both not doing the same thing, we actually have a to-do list for the week, and then we carry over from day to day. It's one of the Microsoft planners. And then even if one person is working remote or someone is doing a visit or someone's not there the next day, excuse me, we can see what's done and what still needs to be done. So having that electronic shared to-do list is really helpful for not only small teams, but I think for any team where you're asking people to do the same or cover the same things.
Yeah, I'd say it's also great for onboarding to kind of keep some transparency between the trainer and the newer coordinator, because that was one of the things that I did with my mentor when she was working part-time, and there were days that I was there and she wasn't. It was nice to have a meeting where we kind of would go down the list of what was going on, what needed to get done, and it helped me be independent, but also check in and make sure that I wasn't missing anything.
Does anyone have any thoughts on how you organized your study visits And do you plan ahead? Do you get the room ready? Do you, get your binder all set up? What do you usually do for the study visits?
I typically get ours going a week or two before, just because I like having all my tubes labeled, everything just done. We also kind of pre-clinic our patients too. For instance, Czech is reopening, so what patients are qualified in 2 weeks to pop in and see if they're interested in doing the Czech study, for instance. But yeah.
Okay.
I definitely
I'm like a OCD, so I make sure that everything is ready for the visits, and I'll have my, the shipping box. I'll make sure my secretary's calling FedEx. I have a checkoff list for all the study visits. I actually have made a study visit list that I can carry over in the study, so that we have it already set up, so that you're not forgetting anything in the study visits. I think a lot of people probably have that too. So. How about catching your PI? I think one of the things with a small team is that it's easier to grab your PI or your physicians or your sub-Is or whoever's going to be taking care of the patient on that study day. Anyone want to address that?
Sure. Because it's only me and I have 2 PIs. One of them will literally tell you I hunt her down. She can be anywhere from out of office to in the administrative office area, the clinic, or on consult coverage. So she and I text each other quite often because email just does not work for her very well. So we have that method usually is I'll text her, find out where she is, and then say what I have for her. Either she has to press a button on a system or she has to sign something for me. And then the other one is much more email friendly. If I send her an email, even during the middle of a busy clinic day, she'll get back to me in an hour or two. And if I need her sooner, I'll go find her in clinic. So.
I agree with a lot of that, with all of it actually, in that, all the PIs function differently. Some of them like text, some of them will say call me, some of them will say email me, and if you mix that up, you'll know about it. I think it also depends on where you are in the study. Like for our studies that are actively enrolling, they may be meeting with the PI every week anyway, so documents that may need to be signed can get done then. And if you came to the earlier talk, we all actually use Viva Vault. So a lot of the documents that needed to be signed in wet ink before, we can now do with Viva. So really what we're left with are labs, EKGs, spirometry, those types of things. And again, the RCs really work with the PIs to figure out what method of communication is going to work best for them, because we work with so many different PIs.
I'm glad you brought that up, Sarah. How did you get your PIs to actually do the training to sign off and then not have to go in there and show them every time they
Yeah, no, that was a good question, and it's something that I realized later I didn't talk about. The training for the PIs is actually 10 minutes, but the reason it took so long to get all of our PIs and sub-Is on board was because of that reason, just not clicking on the link to look at the 10 PowerPoint slides that they needed to. So our lead PI, who sort of oversees our group, he was the person I would say, hey, this person hasn't done this. Can you email him or her and tell them that this needs to be done? And so we really had someone advocating for us to do that. And because we realized the importance of this and how much time it was going to save our RCs. So you need to have support.
I'm thinking about getting a couple of boxes of donuts and locking them all in a room to watch something.
Oh, that'll work.
Maybe. We'll see. Okay, so let's move on to the next. Whoops.
Nope, you went the
Wrong way.
There you go.
Okay, so small teams often have the benefit of having more interaction with the clinical team. I actually share an office right now with my clinic coordinator, and we've worked together for a long time, so that also helps with it. Can anyone talk about how they interact with the clinic team?
For us, our clinic team will send out kind of a flow sheet of what patients are coming into clinic to see what needs the different specialties will have, and research will kind of add on ourselves to a visit. And that way we can also combine procedures if needed, like if they're having a blood draw for clinical care and they need one for research, we can do it one stick. And then also we do meetings with the clinical team as far as once a month there's a combined peds and adult clinic team meeting where they talk about transition and other kind of general center things, and then research will add on and talk about the studies and the patients that we have in studies.
Anyone else want to discuss that?
Sure. The clinic knows me well. I basically live there with them. I have my own office back in a different building altogether, but every Monday and Tuesday, we have different types of weekly meetings. Our Monday meeting is to discuss people coming into clinic for the week. And Tuesday is just a team meeting so that we can focus on projects we're working on. I can give them study information about new studies that open up, that kind of thing. But they're also the people who trained me, basically, and gave me all my background knowledge about CF. And I would say that not only extends to our clinic, but also to the PEDS clinic, of which the former research manager and the current PEDS coordinator were invaluable resources for me, especially in the first year of me not knowing exactly what I was doing in my job. So it helps a lot to have both your site clinic CF team and your center CF team all on board and being great resources for you.
I was going to add something. I am not from a small team, but for what we did, because we have about 700 patients in our clinic, all adults, with 10 providers, and our research team is also about 10 coordinators, and we have probably about 40 people between clinic and research. So to get everybody on the same page, we started a QI project about the culture of research and how can we integrate clinic and research together. So we did several different projects, but one thing that we did, and if you have the space to do it, we have a board in our clinic room that just is there to educate the clinic patients or the clinic staff about the research that we are doing. And we all have heard, I think, several times that if a patient hears about research from their provider, they are more likely to be willing to participate in. So if we can do that education with the providers, whether it's through a meeting or just, hey, we have a study highlight, look at this, it's really pretty. And if they are then able to bring that up and then send the coordinator in to kind of close that deal, you know, any size team can really do that. So I recommend really advertising to your own staff, like to your rest of your clinical team, that research is important too.
To piggyback off that comment, we have a very large Amish population in Northeast Ohio, and they are very reticent to sign anything that has to do with research. They are very leery of even the registry. So if you have your just their normal provider go in and discuss it first, they're at least willing to have the conversation with you, and a lot of times they do end up seeing the benefit. And you know, that's that little push into research that, you know, then you go into the smaller research trials and then the bigger ones. So it's a little bit of a stepping stone for them, and your doctors and your nurses are your best friends.
Katie, I really like what you were saying about the board, because we have a binder that any of the docs can take a look through, but I think that's more visual and right in their face, so I think I might switch over to that too. Great idea.
One thing I would say that's wonderful about small research teams is that all of our docs are in some way related to the research, like there's sub-I or the PI. I don't think we have a doc in either our PEDS or adult clinic that is not on the FDA 1572 for our studies. So they already know the research that's going on and are already pretty aware of what patients are eligible and are kind of our greatest cheerleaders talking with patients. So that's one thing I love.
I know some of you are doing both peds and adults, but is anyone on a separate team, and how do you interact with the other team? Do you share trials, and who decides which PI on which team gets the trial. If you're getting, feasibility things from TDN.
So for us, we operate completely independent from CHOP. So typically when a questionnaire is sent out, there'll be an email exchange about, hey, would you guys want to do this study or should we do the study? If it involves the pediatric population in any capacity, we won't take it because we can't see them. So it really, usually we're taking studies that are just 18 and above, and then anything less than that, CHOP will take. That being said, they had all the modulator studies from day one, so we've really never dabbled in those, but now it's pretty much broken down and there's conversations between people. We don't really have regular meetings with them. I think we meet, is it quarterly? We meet with them, we meet with CHOP quarterly now. We'll have like a Teams meeting and sort of discuss what's going on. To be honest, I think that's one of the things that I would love to have more of is the communication between the pediatric and adult side.
Since there is only one of us at each the pediatric and the adult site, our sites are also, specifically the adult site, is very much limited to only seeing patients that are 18 and above. That's just the rule. So any study that we feel is going to be a combo of pediatric and adult patients, I know that in the past that they've seen them at the pediatric site and still do for one or two of the studies. And so there is a discussion briefly like, hey, do you guys have enough interest in it? Otherwise, I'd be happy to take it on, but then we've got to limit the patient population to only the adult side. So a lot of times the pediatric site will take those that are kind of running both of the age groups.
Anyone else?
I think this recently came up with, was it Stop 360 where the age range included? Yeah, and so we had to make the decision on, okay, CHOP, do you feel like you want to do it? And it was just decided, well, we're not going to see the exacerbation, so why don't you guys just take it knowing you're only going to see 18 and up? So yeah, it's sort of an ongoing conversation.
Or both your sites do both the same study, like we did for the peds and the adult sites, both did Simplify, so.
We actually, our adult and our pediatric PIs discuss it. We have a monthly meeting, and since there's less peds trials coming along, anything that's 12 and above, including like 18 and older, you have to be a pediatrician to actually take care of those patients. So the pediatric PI will take it. And we actually, I do enroll patients in the adults studies, and then we have to like match up like financially at the end of those trials. But I enroll more in their studies than they enroll in ours. Most of the time we'll take the TDN studies that anything's over 12, and then they will also enroll, and we have a really close relationship with the RCs over there. Okay.
No, go back. The last one.
Left one. Oh, this is an important one. Coverage for sick and vacation and timeout on a small team is one of the sticky points to make sure that we're covering our trials and we're being safe. So how does your small team take care of that?
I'm a little bit at an advantage because of my part-time status. So my full-time coordinator, she doesn't have kids, or she's got grown kids. I don't have kids, so we're not fighting over summer breaks, that kind of thing. So it's really nice. But I have a pretty flexible schedule otherwise. So if she's out of town, then I can work more hours if needed. So our situation works really well. We've never had any issues with coverage.
Yeah, for us, we always have a lead RC on a study, and well, all of our RCs are in every study, but we always have a lead RC, and of course the other ones can jump in, but it really, if you're the lead RC, it's kind of your study. So if you're not going to be there, finding someone who can do the backup, do a visit. It really depends. I mean, I know when I was in RC, I would schedule vacations based on when I had visits. And so it can get really tricky to do. But it's sort of looked at like, this is your responsibility. So I guess, it sounds harsh, but figure it out kind of thing. My RCs are looking at me right now like
It is hard.
but I think that is really what we do. I mean, we obviously work closely as a team, so we always have each other's back. But I think for me, I think for a couple of the other RCs, we're always trying to do our best to schedule our life around work, which sounds kind of hard.
No, she's absolutely right, especially when you're the solo coordinator and you have no backup. In my case, I have had no backup for about the last 3 years. I did have backup coverage in actually like about 50% of a coordinator for a while. We were in the midst of having like 10 to 12 studies at our site, though, that were actively enrolling. So it was quite chaotic at the time. So we needed that coverage, and we were able to have it. We had the manpower to do it at that time. Then it really depends a lot on the nature of the studies that we're doing right now. We have shifted in probably the last 4 years from more pharmaceutical heavy studies to now we're getting to be more observational heavy studies. And those ones seem to be a little bit easier to juggle the visit schedules and stuff. So I've been able to work my vacation time around patient visit schedules. That's my first thought, is I look out several months on my calendar and find the week that's clear, and that's when I'm taking a vacation. I'm very fortunate, knock on wood, I have not had COVID since it started, So I was also probably the first coordinator allowed back in the offices when we were shut down for COVID, mainly because I had Vertex patients who needed new medication, resupply. And then everybody on our clinical team knows that I'm available at the drop of a hat. I live alone. I do not have children that live with me. So I'm really very available via text message. So if something were to come up very, very urgently while I'm out or on vacation, they know how or when to get a hold of me so that things can be taken care of, or I can provide some kind of feedback as to direction, what they need to do, so.
One more thing. Yeah. We also are very fortunate. We have a wonderful PI that does a ton of our studies who also can function as an RC. I think it started because we didn't have staff. And so he was kind of thrown into some dosing visits, and really, honestly, I think it was great because he learned why we do the things that we do or why we ask the questions we ask. So for instance, one of our RCs will be out, or we're all out the week of Christmas and New Year's, but someone has a study visit. So he's able to jump in and do the visit on his own because he's on service that week. So we're very blessed to have someone like that, recognizing not a lot of PIs would even want to draw blood or do EKGs or train on the spirometry machine or any of that, but he jumps in and does it all.
It's nice. I would actually recommend that we should ask our PIs if they want to do that. And I've never thought of that before, but I will do that. The way I got around it, again, when I was by myself, I've known my clinic coordinator for more than 30 years and worked with her on the clinic team. So she was nice enough to actually get all the research training, and I used her as a backup. Not so much to cover me because I do the same thing. I sort of plan my vacations around study visits, and sick, or actually cover from home now that we can work remote, which is easy unless I'm really out cold, and thankfully I have not had COVID either. But I was thinking, like, what happens if I get hit by a car or something? I mean, honestly, like an emergency, like who's going to cover me? So you do have to make sure that you have coverage, even on a small team, that someone will be able to step in if you are not able. And I think that a lot of those single RC teams are very dedicated, check their emails when they're off, make sure nothing's going on, like you're working all the time, which is one of the questions about work balance, but okay, I think we can move on from there. Do you do anything, let's talk about referrals and how you figure out who's eligible for trials that you're not doing and how you are planning on doing referrals from your center from a small team.
So we use the regional co-op quite a bit, and our lead RC is actually the lead person in the Midwest. So there's constantly bi-monthly meetings that there's constant communication about what studies are available. And I feel like there's a lot of crowdsourcing between the people that are on those calls of, potential candidates for that. But I think it's a great resource.
We don't have time to do that, is the short answer, I guess. I think this is something I've spoken to people about here where, we want to be able to do that. We want to be able to refer patients, but I think the time available for the research coordinator is so limited, and it's spent doing the other things, the scheduling visits, seeing patients, data entry, monitoring visits. And so it really doesn't leave as much time for that. So I think it's going to change. It's, as we're doing more gene therapy studies, Penn does a lot of these very difficult studies. So we're going to rely on referrals and also have to rely on referring our patients to other centers. So it's going to be, I suspect that will change over time. And whether that's from the RC side or coming more from the physician side, I think remains to be seen. But we don't do as much as we should right now.
Anyone else? I think in the past, what we've done is actually when we get those new trial alerts from Clinical Trial Finder, I would do a quick SMART report, see if there's anyone that would fit that, and then see if we had spoken to them about research before and if they were willing to go somewhere else. It really doesn't take a lot of time. I think the genetic study referrals are going to be way, way more time. And I'm in a ped center, so we're not going to be doing that. But and again, there's not a lot of ped trials now, but in the past, that's the way I did it, and it worked pretty well. Okay. How about support from your team, from your institution, and from the CF Foundation? Does anyone want to talk about how you feel you're supported by those three subsets?
Sure. First, to start with the clinical team, they're fantastic. I love these people. I will do almost anything for them. Many of them are now my very close friends, and one of them, in fact, wants me to text her as soon as I get home tonight at about 12:30 in the morning on Sunday. So it's nice to feel that part of a group. For our institution, our institution's huge. We get financial support to attend events like this, and the time off to be able to do things, other educational events as well. I have another conference next week when I get home. And so, and then CFF, the education alone has been phenomenal. Like, I come to these meetings and I can't wait to see what the newest thing is that I'm gonna learn. The spring meetings, fantastic. Like, I've never learned and felt more capable to do a medical procedure than and I'm a communication major. So this was a big step for me, was to feel like I could do a nasal swab and not hurt somebody very badly, so that alone has been incredible as to building my self-confidence going in to talk to patients about the studies and what we're going to do and why these studies are important. And then also they provided the funding for my ACRP certification, so.
Hey, and I apologize, I was reading off the next slide and wasn't reading the next thing on the list, so bad me. Anyone else want to talk about that?
We have a research institute in our hospital that is kind of our umbrella over our CF research. So we get a lot of resources, like our contracts and budgets go through them. So lots of support there. But if you look around at the other research within our research institute, they're not going to conferences. They don't have big support like this. It's like Patty said yesterday, like it does feel like home. I don't know a whole lot of faces, but I do know faces. So it's really cool. And I don't think you get that from other, I don't know about hem-onc. I don't know about neuro. I don't see it though, but I see it here, which is really cool.
And I would say too, when you're part of like a 1 or 2 research team, it's really important to kind of integrate in with the other research coordinators at your institution. So for us, we have a pretty large pulmonary group of research coordinators, and so I work really closely with them. We talk about what's coming down the pipeline as far as new regulations at our institution and that kind of thing, and are able to troubleshoot kind of common clinical research things that come up.
I'm just going to add, please use all your TDN support. Do the CF mentoring program. Take your ACRP certification. There's so many things that the foundation offers us that other areas do not. This is a very unique population, a unique foundation, and a unique research opportunity compared to other chronic illnesses.
Yeah, I'll add to that a little. I'm a part of the LOFT program. I was a recipient of the LARC award. I'm a member of the protocol review committee, and that is the reason I've stayed in this research. We work with other processes, ILDs, and ILD, NTM studies, all of that. I don't go to any of those conferences, but I come to this conference every year. I come to the TDN conference every year, and I just always tell people the TDN support, the CFF support, it really is the reason that RCs work here for 20, 25 years. You don't really see that in a lot of places, and it's because of the support you get from the network.
I always say that once you get someone onto the CF team, they have to you have to have that time period when they drink the Kool-Aid and come to a conference and come to TDN spring meetings, and then they'll never leave. Okay, let's move on to if you had a wish item or action for your team to make it better, whether it's more staff, better PI communication, or equipment. Does anyone want to talk about what they would love to get or have?
All of that.
Our research office is actually off-site from our main campus where our PI offices are and our clinics are. So we really do most of our meetings by Zoom now. Prior to COVID, we did some in-person meetings. I would love to get back to at least one in-person meeting every so often, quarterly or something. It's just really nice to see people face-to-face and have that interaction. So that's kind of maybe an easier one on my wish list to do.
Anyone else?
I would like to keep monitor visits as virtual as possible. A little, maybe a half-time coordinator just to be my backup. Doesn't even have to take on a study on their own. Just an extra hand to be there when I have 7 patients in clinic I have to see in one day, and they're all about an hour discussion long. So that would help if I could have an extra body to just do that once in a while.
I think maybe institutionally, just finding ways to reduce redundancy in research. Sometimes we come out with these new technologies and it creates more of it kind of just pushes the work from one place to another. And if we could find ways for those to integrate better and so we only have to enter something once, that would be wonderful.
I see Patty and Candy in the back of the room, so I'm going to tell you my wish list. I would love to have site visits from TDN like the clinic has, and so that we could have more buy-in from our institution about the important work we're doing in CF, because I think it often is not brought to our chief of staff and the higher-ups because the research doesn't combine with the clinic. So our Cohen Children's chief of staff doesn't really hear about a lot of the things that we're doing and how important it is and what we need in our division to keep doing research. So that's my wish list. Okay, how are you able And thank you so much for being part of this panel, because this is, you've made the commitment to do this. Will you be willing to do more commitments like this with mentorship or task force? And how do you think you can do that? And do you have time to do that? Or do you have support to do those things?
So I feel fortunate, and I don't even think this is because I work remotely. I think even if I were still working in the office, it would be the same. We have a leader who really trusts us to just do our job, and if that means that this is something we want to do because we're interested in it, I've never had pushback. I've always been supported in things that I want to apply for, whether it's the PRC or the loft. It's never been a question of, oh, well, is that going to take more time? Or are you going to be able to do this? So I feel like I've always been given the freedom to do those things. So we're very fortunate in that respect.
Yeah, I would agree with that, our team, our PIs are very kind of supportive of anything that I've wanted to go out and do as far as working with the CF Foundation or the TDN. I do have to sometimes be mindful of the time commitment, and that's kind of why it always seems like when some of the bigger opportunities like the mentorship program, I've been a mentee, but I have not yet been a mentor, or Loft come up, it happens to be in a time when we're back down to a one coordinator team and we're in the middle of a pretty heavy recruitment. But I've had great opportunities to be a part of, like, write an article for the TDN Times. I've found ways to be on working groups for the NACFC. The part of one was the genetic therapies subgroup. And also I was able to speak about our institution had a cyber attack a while back, or right around COVID. And I was able to speak about that on the RC Reg C open forum, which was pretty cool.
Great.
I would love to participate in more events like this, so feel free to email me and ask. Granted, a lot of it is because I am the solo coordinator. It's a lot due to my workload right now that I can't participate more often. I do feel like I missed the boat on being an RC mentee, but if you guys will accept somebody who's been in it for 9 years, I'm sure there's always new stuff I can learn. Otherwise, I've really enjoyed getting prepared for this. This was the highlight of my year, basically. And I do have support from our higher ups to do more. My PI had me, encouraged me to apply to be on the protocol review committee. I did not get chosen, but that's okay. I was fairly new to the whole thing at the time, and I just haven't felt like I've had the quality time to be able to try to apply for that position again, but that's probably the most interesting thing to me. And then just kind of knowing, I'm the senior coordinator of 8 coordinators in our division, which is pulmonary, critical care, and sleep. And I have CF, that's my bucket. So the other coordinators have pulmonary hypertension, ILD, IPF, critical care, that kind of thing. So I, being the senior coordinator, am the mentor to all of them right now, because a lot of our coordinators have been there only about 1.5 to 2 years or less. So it's a big learning space right now in our division for all of them. And it's kind of interesting to see the challenges that they come up against that is completely different from what a CF study does. So I enjoy that part of it very much, and I try to grab as many opportunities at our site for doing that kind of thing as I can.
I think I do have a lot of support in my facility. I would say that as someone that's been in my position for 2 years, I do have a little bit of imposter syndrome, so I don't really feel like I'm qualified to be on this panel. But I think just, getting your feet wet and just doing the thing. I can't say enough good things about my research coordinator. She pushes me to do things I'm not comfortable with. So just do it. I also need to get on the mentee program. But yeah, imposter syndrome is real. So.
Okay, so being recognized for excellence in your work and having opportunities to grow and development have been identified as one of the most important factors in job retention. And we know that RC's job retention is really important. And I know that all institutions are different, they're structured differently. So I wanted just to ask you a little bit about advancement opportunities in your team and in your institution. I'm actually a clinical research nurse. I came from a nursing background, and there's no clinical research nurse ladder. There's an RC ladder. It's very developed, but not one for clinical research nurses. But they do have, we have a oversee the Feinstein Institute, and they do have awards like the Clinical Research Nurse Award of the Year, and Clinical Research Coordinator, the PI, and I was recognized as Clinical Research Nurse of the Year. That to me was just huge because we don't get a lot of feedback about, I don't have advancement opportunities. I'm going to be a clinical research nurse. That's it for the rest of my time in CF. So that to me was really important. So does anyone want to take that question?
We have a career ladder at our hospital. It's separated into leadership, clinical, and also research. So it's not a lot of, it's a little bit of an incentive. It's a little bit more money on your paycheck. We do also have the bigger awards that, recognize one outstanding research nurse, but it still does feel pretty limiting because there's never going to be a huge pay bump.
Yeah, so Penn also does have something similar. So if you come in, you might start as a CRCA, and then you can move up to a B and then a C. But after that, you either have to move into project management or just stay at a CRCC indefinitely. So it is limited because then you're stuck with what is the yearly. Really, it's not even cost of living raise at sometimes. But so yeah, we're limited. I believe that Penn is working on establishing something a little more robust, but I don't know where they are in that. And then even within our group is really small. So right now we have an A, we have a B, and we have a C, and then me, I'm the project manager. But outside of that, it's you can promote within, but we can't hire everyone and we can't promote everyone all the time. And so you're constantly feeling like, is this person going to go to another department? Are they going to find the PM job somewhere else, or like a PM A job, B job, C job? So yeah, it's definitely always a worry, like in the back of your mind. You could always lose someone, and you don't want to. You've spent a lot of time training them, so it's definitely a balance. It's hard.
Our ladder for RCs, it has 3 levels, and the 3rd level requires certification. So I actually was able to get that through the CFF ACRP program. So a really big plug for that. That was really helpful for me.
Okay, just see if I can get this down a little bit. Okay, so a sense of purpose and accomplishment in your work is also really important in your life. So this is a personal question, so feel free to pass on answering. Do you find accomplishment and joy in your work? And are you struggling with this? I'd like to just talk about that also.
Yes, actually. 80% of the time, I would say I am a very fulfilled employee. A lot of my accomplishment comes from participating in these studies. The Trikafta trial was just amazing. To go and put 4 of our subjects, our patients, through the study as subjects, and then see 2 of them right off the bat in the placebo trial, have this huge lung function increase. And you kind of sit there and you're like, you don't believe the piece of paper you're holding in your hand, and I kind of look at them and I'm like, wow, okay, this might actually work, by the way, that was an impossible trial to keep a blind on because they would go to clinic and they weren't blinded to their clinic numbers. So they just saw the improvement first and then they were feeling it too right away. And one of them I caught in clinic and at her clinic appointment, probably a month into it. And she was sitting there crying because she hadn't been at that number since before she was 10 years old. So it was very impressive. And that alone will make me come back day after day after day to make sure that we get that kind of result again for a patient who was struggling to stay out of the hospital. And now she hasn't been in the hospital for IV treatments or anything in over 3 years. So.
I'm sort of the opposite, where she's feeling good 80% of the time. I'm feeling bad 80% of the time. So this is just a plug to say that remote work isn't always the best. And to be honest, the day I got at the meeting, I just felt immediate relief seeing my RCs and being like, oh my God, I am part of a team, because I think I feel a lot of the time like I'm not a part of the team. And again, just plugging the work that we do here. I remember doing the Translate Bio study, and that was when people had just started Trikafta, and I remember calling a patient for a phone call, and she was just telling me how good she felt, and I was just getting goosebumps. I was like, this is incredible. And again, I think every time I come to one of these meetings, and we're in a plenary, and one of those videos comes on, I'm always gonna cry, always gonna cry. And these meetings reinvigorate me, and every time I leave one, I'm like, you can't leave this, you love this, you love it. The TDN support you get, it's unlike any other, and that really is the reason that I've stayed so long.
Yeah, absolutely. The relationships that we get to kind of build with our patients, and the amount of time that we get to spend with them. Like, these study visits are long sometimes, and we get to really have time to get to know our patients, and then to have them want to return for another study and just kind of really keep contributing to the advancement of therapies for CF and the understanding of CF. I mean, it's just such a privilege to be in that space and being a part of that.
And let's face it, research is voluntary. Like, we get the cream of the crop. We get patients that actually want to be here and talk to us and share their experience. So we pick some really good patients. I'll come back day after day.
I think if you have anyone on your team who you see is struggling, I would recommend that you have them go into the clinic more and meet the families. Follow the clinic team, get to know their patients. Even if they're not in research, they'll understand why they're doing what they're doing. Have them come to these meetings, make sure they come to TDN spring meeting, that they're included. And again, I think that we can all say that once you meet the people in this group, it's beyond, like, now I have goosebumps. I tend to cry a lot when Trikafta came through. I was a sobbing mess. Everyone looked at me and I would be bawling. So I think that joy, that accomplishment in this area is something that is, I would assume sickle cell probably felt the same way, but it's a family and you're working towards something that makes such a difference, such a difference.
I would just say, too, finding a way, one of the things that I find coming to these meetings is I'm always learning something new and leaving with something new that I've learned. And there are opportunities at home to do that, too, to rediscover research in a new way or from a new perspective. So, like, look into volunteering for your IRB committee or things like that. Become part of advocacy or working with your patient family advisory group. Like, there are opportunities to look at research from a new perspective and become, more involved in those ways.
One more involvement that really helps connection is join in the fundraising from your chapter. Do the bike rides, do the walkathons, go to, the hike, the hike, whatever. It's such a great experience. You feel like you're a warrior, with the rest of the family. So
I was going to say, last year I decided to fly up to Philly the company was going to pay for me to be there. We didn't have an RC who could do these visits, but it was a 10-day dosing period with a patient. And for 10 days, every single day, being with this patient, I got to know her so well. I learned about her family. She wrote me this beautiful card that she'd actually drawn herself. And I still have it. It was absolutely wonderful. And to feel like I had had that much of an impact on that patient, but also her not recognizing how much of an impact she had on me during that time. It's just a phenomenal experience that you just don't get anywhere else.
Great.
I was going to add something too. And I'll just add too, it doesn't matter what size team you are on to make those relationships with your patients or with your clinic team. Hopefully in your day, you can find time to reach out to one of your patients, do one of your study subjects, go down to clinic, meet the families that you're working with. And at least like for us on the adult side, we are seeing them for so long now. And we're seeing I don't want to call her one of my favorite subjects, but you all have.
But she is.
You will.
Yeah, yes.
But I've known her since she transitioned, and now she's a mom. So to see that whole process of her transition in her young 20s was not a good time for her, but to see what has happened through it and to have that relationship really makes you want to keep coming back and you want to stay. And it's not going to take time from having to do a monitor visit or having to do that paperwork. It'll still be there. Those will still be there when you come back. It's having that relationship that you can't get back if they're in the hospital or if they're in clinic, and you can go in and just say hi and then keep going. And then you can go back to your paperwork and finish that later.
I always make sure to check who's coming in for clinic for the day to see if it was one of my past subjects, because then I'll check in on them and see what's going on. And oftentimes, they'll come running into the back office to see if I'm there too. So thank you so much for coming. We're going to have some questions and answers. And again, feel free to add to this if you have any suggestions, if you have any ideas. It's for actually all teams, not just this one. And a big thank you to our panel for joining us today. We're also going to be leaving our emails coming up after this. I'm going to actually go to that one. If anyone wants to reach out to any of us with questions or comments, or if you want to share anything.
Hi, I have a question about some current studies, and then there's some upcoming studies that are very endocrine focused. To disclose, I am specifically in CFRD research, so I'm not TDN. And so we're very well suited. I have my own team to take these on. And Sarah knows that. She actually tossed bionic pancreas to the CFRD team at Penn. And this question is for you or for anybody else. As a small team, or even just a very pulmonary focus due to just the nature of previous CF studies, what's your comfort level with taking on endo studies with procedures that you're not familiar with? There may be more involved. It may also just be like the research infrastructure that you have access to. Just kind of curious. So the current one is strong, and then I think you've already gotten the site solicitation for bionic pancreas, and then we'll have another one, Spectrum, coming up. So just curious on your thoughts on that, something that's a little bit different.
We've got the bionic pancreas solicitation, and I think as long as endo is good working with us, we feel fine taking that study.
So because I know bionic pancreas is specifically requesting a partnership with endo.
Right, yeah. And our endocrinologist is really good with working with us, and our PI is, he wants to get these studies, so we would feel fine with it.
What site are you at?
Akron Children's.
Okay.
We actually brought our endo person with us that was interested in joining us. We started collaborating with our GI person on any of that, and he comes up to our clinic now. We're trying to get like a day each for all of the specialists that we don't have, but now we have a fellow from Endo who's interested. So we're up for doing anything pretty much. And I think as RCs, we have to train in all different things. So, learning a new thing is part of the job.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say is,
Yeah.
it comes back to like learning new things, like super excited about that, those studies, so, yeah.
Yeah, we have a study who's just adding in multiple breath washout. And so it's like, okay, I guess we'll train on this because it seems like it's a part of a lot of new protocols anyway. So it's like, okay, great, I guess we're going to do this.
Great, that's very reassuring.
Thanks for your question.
I really advocate for all research coordinators to go to clinic. My partner and I made a commitment several years ago to do an annual research talk. So we try to go into each of our patients at least once a year and say, hey, here's what's coming on in CF research. Of course, that went away with the pandemic, but we're struggling to put it back. And the other thing that we found was that if you're not paying careful attention and you're just talking and you're so excited about hearing yourself talk, like I do, then these aren't very productive. So we've decided, instead of having this huge template of points we want to discuss, now, especially after going through the PEP program, we're just like, hey, I'm here from research. I'd like to talk to you about research. What would you like to know? Yes. And it's kind of scary because I've had several people say, I don't want to know anything. And then I'm like, I so appreciate your honesty. I mean, no, excuse me. But no, I so appreciate your honesty, and we're here, and just here's how you call me. And I just would really like to put a plug. If you want to see a little slice of hope, walk into clinic and tell them you're from research.
I agree, Dixie. It's a really great way to meet your patients, but also good time to educate them about CF research. There are, again, so many handouts that you can do. You can get those folders ordered from TDN. You put your card inside. You can give them like, what is, CF research? What's a stage 1 trial? What's a stage 2? I tend to go in a couple of times a year to them. And I also have started sending a newsletter out to all of the patients. And it was originally supposed to just be research, but our clinic team thought it was so great they wanted to sort of tag in. So now I'm the editor of that. But every newsletter has several research, what's available in our center, what, one of those education forums from CFCRNet and the order. I don't even think it's not CFCRNet. It's on CF Portal. Yeah. So go into CF Portal and click on those resources and use those resources. They're great.
Yeah,
Is
and
IRB approved?
No,
Okay, because it's not study specific.
no, it's education.
Educational.
And I'm going to tell you, we went from a site of having about 9 people in our group of about, at that time, probably only about 125 patients, 9 years ago, participate in any research. Now, we only had 1 or 2 studies in the first year. But as we got more studies, obviously, I needed to enroll a lot more people. So even though I appreciate the 2 that have literally basically done every study we've ever had open. But yeah, by going to, and I just decided from the get-go, I need to talk to these people. I need them to realize that I'm there for them. I'm going to get all their concerns answered as quickly as possible. Research is a scary thing to about half of them, that have never participated, especially. So we've gone from that little group to having over 65% of our patient population participate in research. And I contribute that totally to the fact that myself, our wonderful nurse coordinator, and the PIs talk to our patients all the time about what's available to them currently, and that these aren't scary things to do, is to participate in a 4-visit study, so.
I'm the only coordinator at my site, and I'm also the registry coordinator, and I'm responsible for processing all the labs. It's a bit much. No, I think what I'm hoping for is some practical advice because it's overwhelming, especially when we're having 2 new studies starting that will easily take 12-hour days. And the lab is not in the same building as where I see the patient. It's 2 buildings over. So in a lot of studies, I'm like getting the blood, and it's like, okay, I got 30 minutes before that first tube has to go in the centrifuge, and then 15 minutes after that is the PK, and then there's the rest of them. And any advice on how you get all that lab taken care of?
You don't have any space that you could buy a centrifuge and put it near your research room?
I don't have a research room. I see the patients in the clinic.
Do they have a dirty utility room near you?
Yes, but there's no money, there's nothing, so.
Maybe
no.
you can use your TDN grant to get a centrifuge?
I don't know. I didn't even know that was possible.
Will the sponsor send you one?
No.
I was gonna say, sometimes sponsors will.
Getting some, I mean, because we process too. We had a centrifuge from clinic when we moved from one office to the other that I stole for myself and just put it nearer to the research room.
Yeah, I also have to take the samples to FedEx
Yeah.
personally.
FedEx is,
And they're open until
Not my
8:30.
favorite.
UPS closes at 6, so it's like,
I know.
that's a big deal when we have
I
someone that wants
do-
to do UPS. It's like, please don't.
Do you have any administrative staff that could take over like the FedEx stuff for you?
No. Especially since if it's after 5 o'clock, you have to give FedEx a 2-hour window.
I do.
Or if it's even later, there's just no way, and it's not that far a drive, but it still means everything has to be done, and then I have to go across campus where my car is at.
I hear you.
Physically, it's difficult because I broke my arm doing a study visit, and I also have a torn rotator cuff, so I'm limited in how much lifting and dry ice lifting, because I have to order everything like that as well.
Do you have any sub-Is that can help you?
No. They barely see the patients. Usually it's just me and the PI.
We can chat later.
For like 90%, it's me. and
Anyone
the
have any
PI.
good ideas sitting out there?
It is true for anyone, when you come across problems that really with your best effort you can't solve, it's time to sit down with the PI and have an honest discussion. But as my PI, Dr. Daniel Rosen, told me, I have resources you don't have. And I can solve problems you might not be able to solve, but he can't if I don't sit down and have an honest discussion.
yeah.
So I would do, if you're a smart person, you've already tried a lot of things, it's time to sit down and have a heart-to-heart.
Thanks, Patty.
And don't be afraid to escalate it. Like,
Yes.
go to that PI, but then above the PI, there will be research administration or some kind of administration. There's usually, I don't know your center, usually there's someone above. You can escalate, and then you can always pull in Patty or other people from the foundation who can then advocate for you or your study sponsor to just get that advocation out. And you just like, if you want us to do the study, you need X, Y, and Z. Yeah. We need that from you if you want us to do that.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. At some point, you have to look at the situation and say, this is no longer a feasible study because we do not have the appropriate resources to take this on.
Which I know is tough to tell PIs that.
Yeah.
They don't like to hear that, but
Right,
you
but
do
they,
need to have that discussion with the PI and say,
Yeah.
I need help, I need this, I need that.
they have to hear from you. They don't know if you just act like you're handling everything, they think you're handling everything. So you got to talk to them, you got to share with them and express your concerns. And I think Sam mentioned the TDN grant for maybe a centrifuge. That would be a legitimate use of your TDN grant. So talk about that with your PI, see if that can't be something.
Sometimes hospitals, actually, we have like I forget what they call it, but it's like a donate list that they have equipment that they're not using. And I never knew about it, but you can get things from other divisions that they're ready to toss. I'm hoping to get a freezer from adult, that they don't have, space or they don't want it, they're getting another one. So you might be able to get it that way. You could check.
Yeah. Something else I wanted to go back to an earlier conversation, I think was the new person, brand new the weekend. Who was that?
Over there.
Another great resource we have and I'm sure you all have it, is just thinking of it. We meet weekly as a team, and it's our clinic nurses and our pharmacists. Our pharmacists talk to every patient, every visit, so they know everything that's going on with our studies. They are often the first one to bring up a study, and that's a great resource for us because they know all the meds that they're on, if it's going to be an issue. They're just great. It's been the best thing for getting our patients aware of what's going on. So I would recommend that. I had one other thing, but it's gone now, so.
If you think of it, you can.
Yeah, I'll come back.
One thing I wanted to say too, to sort of go back to the point the issue she was having, and we talked about this a little bit when we were planning for this, I work at the University of Pennsylvania, obviously. We have access to a ton of students, and we recently hired 3 students, and we use those students for a registry study, but we also have them at our disposal for processing labs, prepping lab kits, data entry. We can use them for really whatever we want. So I don't know if that's something you have access to. Yeah, that's something like, as a small team, you have a work study student that's subsidized. And so like what we actually end up paying is very little. And Penn has a great nursing program. So we're able to get students who often already have access to Epic and know how to do a lot of the stuff. So
I'm paying my
I'm sorry.
I pay my grandson to help me with registry data entry. Because there's only so much I can do. We have about 180 pages.
I'm getting stressed out.
Yeah. I thought me not having coverage was bad, but I think you might have beat me on that one. So.
Well, thanks again, everyone. If you, safe flight home, and I hope I see you all next year.
Patty's running.
Oh, wait, Patty's coming.
Sorry.
I did want to thank you so much for this presentation. I loved the opening that it's our small teams that are so central to what we do. And it is easy to think that you're not. And I just wanted to be sure that you heard it from me that you're such an important part of the network and of the work that gets done through this network. So thank you for finding a way to make it work on a small team. We do site visits, but it's through the Equip CR coaching program, and you would have people who have been trained as coaches.
So we
visit.
we actually did,
Okay.
and Bob and Bridget came to
Yeah.
us.
Okay.
It was awesome.
Yes.
We actually, what we said was we wanted more institutional awareness of
Right.
our program, and it worked for about a year, and then we fell off their radar.
So sorry. But those site
But it
visits.
was great. So,
yeah, they
that's it.
usually do spend a good bit of time with the institutional leadership and can be leveraged to really make a difference. And the other thing I just wanted to mention, have you ever participated in a trial? And it really does change your perspective. I participated in a device study and in a vaccine study. And I think it made me a much more aware. I was going to say a better research coordinator, but I don't think you can say I'm a research coordinator anymore. But anyway, I just encourage you, if you have the opportunity. Some aren't very demanding, but going through the consent process as a patient is a little different. And again, I just wanted to thank the presenters and thank all of you for what you do. Thanks.
Thanks, Patty.
Oh, Candy, did you remember?
You said something to help me remember. When we first got started, we weren't very good enrollers. I think you were talking about how much your site improved. Ours did the same. So our first really good metrics report, we shared it with hospital administration. And that has been something we continue to do, and it brings the attention on what we do and all the wonderful support we get. So it comes up at our hospital all the time. Well, CF is different. They have all this good stuff and everybody else doesn't have that. So it's a really good way to share what your site is doing.
I'm trying to get our research leadership to actually have meetings with the chief of staff and the administrative people to see what we're doing and what we want to do in the future. To see, because
Well, even if they don't set up the meeting, you can send your metrics report if it's a big improvement. Just send it to the.
that was
powers that
part of
be.
our equip was that too, showing him the metrics report.
Yeah.
So, again,
Great job,
thanks.
you guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank